Have you ever felt that strange pull towards things that are really intense, dramatic even,
Mm.
sometimes even unsettling
Oh, absolutely.
in art, music, stories that really grab you? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the most, I don't know, powerful stuff we create,
Mm.
if it's somehow born from tackling something raw, something fundamentally human, but not always
Wait,
human.
that really resonates. Yeah. It suggests that maybe the source of our deepest creations isn't some like placid lake of pure joy,
Right.
but maybe something more turbulent where, light and shadow are just completely tied together. Think about the sheer energy it takes to turn something, base into something exquisite.
Okay, let's get into this transformation idea
Yeah.
because it sounds a bit like we're saying beauty has this hidden cost, a shadow side. Are we suggesting those really powerful emotions, those basic urges driving us, they have to be, I don't know, refined, wrestled into submission almost to
Mm.
become something we call beautiful or meaningful?
Precisely. I mean, think about civilization itself. The whole structure is built on rules, right? Societal expectations that guide and, yeah, sometimes suppress our most primal instincts.
Okay.
But the energy from those instincts, it doesn't just poof, vanish. It finds other ways out, often into art or science, culture.
Ah, okay.
This redirection, this channeling, that's basically what we could call sublimation.
Sublimation. So those massive forces inside us, the drive to connect, create, love, but also the disruptive ones,
Hmm?
aggression, the pull towards chaos. These aren't just personal fights we're having.
No, not at all.
They're like the raw ingredients shaping our whole collective human story.
Yes.
Better or worse.
Exactly. These core drives, Freud called them eros, the life
Yeah.
instinct, that's love, creativity, all that,
Right.
and thanatos, the death instinct, which
Yeah.
sounds grim, but think aggression, destruction. They aren't just inside our own heads. They're the basic energies fueling our actions, sure, but also the direction our societies take. And the really fascinating part, the tension, is how we manage and, transform these powerful forces.
Which loops back to that weird discomfort we sometimes feel when we create or see something really powerful. It's rarely just calm and nice.
Never simple, no.
Artists talk about struggle, right? Pushing
Mm.
boundaries, this visceral need to get something out that feels almost painful.
Mm.
Is that the echo of this primal wrestling match you're talking about, this having to face the ugliness within to even get to the beauty?
I think so, yes. The act of creation can feel deeply unsettling exactly, because it often forces us to engage with the unvarnished bits of ourselves, and the human condition generally. It's like working with some volatile element. The potential for brilliance is huge, but so is the risk. You have to handle it carefully.
Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper then. This idea that the most beautiful, most meaningful stuff is somehow rooted in these, well, darker aspects. Art, music, literature, art, they basically just sophisticated ways we grapple with our fundamental, maybe less palatable human urges.
At their core, yeah, I'd say so. These creative outlets become a kind of alchemy.
Alchemy, okay.
A way of changing the raw energy of our instincts, the longings, frustrations, aggressions, into something society can not only accept, but often, celebrate. Like a blues musician pouring hardship into a melody, or a novelist exploring the messy parts of human conflict.
But hang on, is all profound beauty born from this inner turmoil? Really? Can't pure joy or just like observing something amazing be the source of truly moving art? A painter capturing a stunning sunset, does that have to come from some hidden conflict?
Well, that's a fair question. The immediate spark might feel like pure joy, or just seeing something beautiful. But the act itself, focusing on that scene, why it resonates so much with the artist, the deep human urge to capture and share beauty, you can often trace those back to deeper psychological currents.
How so?
Maybe it's a yearning for harmony because there's inner chaos, or a basic drive to connect with something bigger than just us. Even how we perceive beauty can be subtly tangled up with our deepest needs and, the fact that they're never perfectly met.
Okay. So civilization, with all its amazing achievements, rests on this foundation of suppressed or maybe sublimated drives,
Yeah.
both the good stuff and the destructive stuff.
Right.
They don't go away, they just find these other more acceptable paths. It's necessary for society to function, I get that. But you mentioned the cost. What's the trade-off? What do we actually lose when we sublimate these raw impulses?
The cost, partly, is maybe a distance from the direct, unfiltered experience of those primal drives. To make something refined, something palatable for everyone else, the original impulse has to be shaped, moderated, tamed even.
Right.
And while it gives us culture, art, all that, it can also create a disconnect from a more, let's say, visceral, authentic part of ourselves. It's like diluting something really potent to make it drinkable. You lose some of that original kick.
So the act of creating, while it can lead to beauty, is also this confrontation with our inner world, our ugliness within, as you put it.
Yeah.
But in transforming it, are we also sanitizing it, losing some vital truth about what it means to be human?
That's a really critical point. By refining the raw into the polished, sure, we get aesthetic pleasure, social approval, but we might also lose a direct line to the untamed reality of our basic emotions and instincts. It's this constant negotiation, isn't it, between primal expression and civilized articulation. Something's always altered in the exchange.
Can you give me a specific example? Maybe an artist whose work we know is beautiful, but whose life really shows this tension, this inner turmoil versus outward expression.
How about Frida Kahlo? Her life was just filled with intense physical pain, emotional suffering.
Definitely.
And her art often showed that, graphically, unflinchingly. There's incredibly personal paintings. They can be unsettling, yeah, but they have this raw beauty, this honesty that just hits you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like she took her pain, her longing, her actual visceral experiences and just transformed them onto the canvas with this incredible, unyielding intensity.
And did doing that, did it help her? Did that transformation offer solace? Or was it just, I don't know, a way to get the turmoil out? It makes you wonder if sublimation is actually healing or just channeling.
It's complicated, isn't it? For some, yeah, creation can be cathartic, a way to process things, maybe get some distance, but it doesn't necessarily just erase the underlying pain. For Kahlo, her art was this incredibly powerful way to express herself, to communicate her reality. But it didn't magically fix the physical or emotional struggles she dealt with her whole life. The transformation gives us the art, but the artist, they still carry the weight.
Okay, let's zoom out again, back to society. How does this constant push and pull between what I want and what the group expects show up culturally? You mentioned civilized behavior as controlling instincts.
Exactly. Every single society develops its own framework, norms, laws, customs that basically draw lines around which expressions of our basic drives are okay and which aren't. Civilized behavior is really just the outward sign of this ongoing effort to manage our instincts so we can all live together.
Right.
We learn pretty early on to suppress the impulses that are seen as disruptive or harmful to the group.
And this control, while you can argue it's needed for social order, it can also lead to a kind of societal neurosis, like an underlying tension just simmering away. Where does that pressure release culturally?
Oh, it finds release in tons of ways. Art, like we've been saying, is a huge outlet.
Yeah.
But think about humor, too. It often lets us talk about taboo stuff in a way that's okay. Rituals, traditions, they can give us structured ways to express and contain certain feelings. Even competitive sports. You could see that as a kind of sublimated tribal aggression, right? Channeled into a game with rules.
Can you think of specific cultural examples?
Right.
Where you see a really strong clampdown in one area leading to a particular kind of outlet somewhere else?
Okay. Think about cultures with really strict social rules around, say, mourning and expressing grief.
Right.
Those societies often develop incredibly elaborate rituals or specific art forms like funeral songs or particular ways of remembering the dead. It channels those intense emotions of loss into forms culture sanctions.
Makes sense.
Or similarly, societies that put a huge emphasis on order and conformity. They might see a real flourishing of satire or rebellious countercultures. They provide a space, even if limited, for dissent and frustration to come out.
Okay, but this brings up a really key point. Power. Who decides? Who in a society gets to define what's beautiful, what's acceptable, what gets sublimated, and how? It feels like there's a hierarchy baked into this whole process.
Absolutely. Sublimation isn't neutral at all. Power structures, political, religious, economic, they have a huge influence in shaping what gets valued and what gets suppressed.
How so?
They essentially steer the flow of this sublimated energy. They define what's okay to channel and how, and often, well, often in ways that reinforce their own dominance and the existing social setup.
So how does that influence something that feels so personal, so subjective, like how we appreciate art?
Well, think about the historical canon of art. Certain forms, certain styles, certain artists get lifted up, celebrated, often reflecting the tastes and values of the dominant groups in society.
Like classical music being high culture.
Exactly. Or the focus on realism and classical forms in certain eras, often tied to ideas about order, reason, control, that lined up nicely with the powers that be. Meanwhile, other art forms, maybe from marginalized groups or exploring more transgressive themes, they might get dismissed or ignored. at least initially, until maybe culture shifts and reevaluates them.
Let's circle back to that basic question then. This transformation, raw experience into beauty, is it a natural psychological thing, something just part of us?
Yeah.
Or is it mostly shaped by society, by moral pressures pushing down on us?
I suspect it's deeply tangled, both. There's definitely an inherent human ability to process and express intense feelings, and creation can be a really natural outlet for that.
Sure.
But the specific forms it takes, what gets labeled beautiful or acceptable, even the impulse to sublimate in certain ways rather than others, that's heavily shaped by culture, by norms, by the moral codes floating around us. Sublimation is personal and collective all at once.
Now let's dig into Freud's framework a bit more. Eros and Thanatos, the life instinct, the death instinct. How did these primal forces specifically connect to this sublimation idea?
They're the engines, basically. They drive the whole thing. Eros pulling towards connection, creation, pleasure, provides this powerful energy source that can be sublimated into art, love, building culture, all that.
Great. The positive drive.
Right. And Thanatos, the other side, the drive towards destruction, aggression, taking things apart, that energy can be sublimated too into things like competition, scientific inquiry that breaks down the world to understand it, even the dramatic stories we tell about conflict and solving it.
So they're constantly battling.
Constantly. Inside us, inside society. And sublimation is one of the main ways we try to manage their powerful, often contradictory energies.
And how does society, like writ large, try to manage these incredibly strong, often opposing forces?
Through developing and getting us to internalize what Freud called the superego.
The conscience, sort of.
Yeah, that internalized voice of morality rules what society expects. It acts like an internal censor, pushing down impulses seen as dangerous or unacceptable, and redirecting that psychic energy towards more productive or socially okay outlets. That's sublimation in action.
But it's not the same for everyone.
Not at all. How well it works and how that energy gets channeled varies massively between people and definitely across different cultures.
Okay, let's look at Eros first. The life instinct, especially sexual desire, how do we see that getting expressed and sublimated in art and literature over time?
Well, the history of art and literature is just full of it. Think about periods where you couldn't be direct about desire. You get highly symbolic, allegorical depictions of love.
Right, like coded language.
Exactly. Or the passionate sonnets back in the Renaissance, the really intense romanticism of the 19th century, even the subtle erotic charge in a lot of classical sculpture. These are all arguably ways of channeling that powerful Eros energy into forms that were culturally okay, even celebrated. The drive is still there, just transformed, often veiled.
Okay, now the flip side. Thanatos, the destructive impulse. How does that show up, and how does societies try to sublimate all that inherent aggression?
Well, aggression, Freud argued, is just intrinsically human. Societies create these elaborate systems to manage it: laws, police, punishments, but also rituals, even entertainment.
Like war.
War itself, yeah. Despite the horror, psychologically you could see it as a collective sublimation of aggressive drives channeled into a conflict with rules and justifications, however shaky they might be. And competitive sports, like we mentioned, a structured, symbolic way to express aggression, dominance, conflict, but within safe boundaries. Even our fascination with violence in stories, myths, movies, whatever, could be a way of engaging with and sublimating our own destructive potential.
You brought up guilt earlier, that internal conflict from living under society's rules. How does guilt fit into this sublimation picture?
Guilt, in this Freudian view, comes from that tension, right? Between what we instinctively want and what our internal moral compass, shaped by society, says is wrong. It's that bad feeling we get when we think about or act on impulses deemed unacceptable.
Okay.
And that feeling, guilt, can be a huge motivator for sublimation. It pushes us to transform those base instincts into something more socially valued or maybe personally fulfilling as a way to ease that inner conflict, to kind of atone or feel worthy.
But there's a downside.
Well, yeah. It can also lead to feeling inauthentic, like we're constantly suppressing crucial parts of ourselves just to get societal approval and avoid feeling guilty.
So this isn't just happening in art galleries or churches. This sublimation process must be working everywhere, across way more of human life. Where else can we see it?
Oh, definitely. Think about, say, the business world, finance, that intense drive to compete, to acquire, to dominate the market. You could easily see that as sublimated aggression, a sublimated will to power.
Competition is channeled fighting.
Sort of, or scientific research. That relentless push for knowledge, the drive to dissect and understand the world, that could be a sublimation of curiosity, which is eros, maybe. but also a desire to master and control, which might have links back to Thanatos.
Interesting.
Even something like social activism, fighting passionately against injustice, that could be seen as channeling anger and a desire for a better world into constructive action, taking destructive feelings and building something.
Which brings us right back to that core paradox of progress. We strive, we build, we innovate. But is it all fundamentally built on redirecting these potentially explosive energies?
That's the unsettling question, isn't it? Sublimation makes society possible, allows for culture, technology, but it might also create this subtle alienation, a feeling that we're somehow cut off from our more authentic selves, even while we're gaining more freedom or opportunity.
How so?
Because the mechanisms of sublimation get so deeply embedded, so normal, that we often mistake the results. Our values, our goals, our achievements for purely rational choices or inherently good things. We don't always see the primal urges potentially churning underneath.
And what about the politics of it all? Does thinking about sublimation give us any clues about how societies are run, how power works, how ideologies form?
Absolutely. Sublimation is deeply political. Who's in charge often plays a big role in defining which desires are okay and which need suppressing or channeling in ways that conveniently support the existing power setup.
Oh.
Ideologies themselves, you could see them as grand stories that give us socially acceptable ways to understand and direct these fundamental drives, often masking the raw urges with appeals to higher ideals or the common good.
Wow. Okay, so we started by asking if creating beauty might be a kind of self-betrayal, leading us away from our true selves. After exploring all this, where do you land on that pretty unsettling idea?
I think maybe betrayal's too strong. It's more like a constant, really complex negotiation. Taking pain or primal urges and turning them into beauty can be a way to externalize them, maybe even master them a bit.
Okay.
But it always involves mediation, right? Making the raw palatable. And that process can create distance. It might obscure the original intensity and, yeah, potentially lead to feeling disconnected from a more fundamental part of who we are.
And guilt, that feeling you said is so common in civilized life. How does that play into this potential self-betrayal idea and sublimation?
Guilt is like the internal enforcer. It's constantly whispering or shouting that certain instincts are bad, unacceptable, need to be pushed down or changed.
Right, the inner critic.
Exactly. And that internal pressure drives a lot of sublimation. It pushes us to conform. The potential betrayal comes in if, by always striving to be good or acceptable, we end up silencing vital parts of ourselves, losing touch with the full, messy spectrum of being human.
So, if our progress, our civilization, is partly built on redirecting these basic instincts, is it possible that our advancements are, in a way, built on a kind of collective illusion?
It definitely suggests that while we achieve incredible things, we might not always be getting to the root causes of our inner conflicts or societal problems. Our amazing tech, our complex social structures, they might seem like liberation and progress, but maybe they're also just really elaborate ways of managing these underlying drives without ever fully understanding or integrating them. It's progress, maybe, but with this persistent low hum of unease underneath.
So in the end, civilization itself is this thing we build and live inside, a complex system just founded on these contradictions, these unresolved tensions.
Exactly. We're both the architects and the inhabitants of this cultural world, constantly shaping it and constantly being shaped by it. And it forces us, or should force us, to keep questioning where our values really come from, how authentic our choices are, and what the true nature is of the beauty and progress we work so hard for.
So the paradox is still right there at the center. Pain, desire, even destruction.
Yeah.
They can be turned into beauty, into progress, through this really intricate process, sublimation. But it's not simple. It's not just a transaction. It's an ongoing conversation between our inner selves and what the world demands.
Indeed. And the big questions don't go away. What parts of ourselves do we lose or have to suppress in this transformation? And ultimately, is it worth it? Do the gains, culture, society really outweigh the cost of maybe distancing ourselves from our raw, untamed nature?
It leaves you with a pretty profound, maybe unsettling thought, doesn't it? Every time we look at art, every time we just participate in our culture, we're kind of taking part in this huge ongoing experiment, civilization.
Yeah.
The experiment where we're simultaneously the ones shaping it and the ones being shaped.
Yeah.
The controllers and the controlled.
And maybe the most crucial question is personal. How much are my own desire, my aspirations, really mine? And how much are they sublimated expressions of deeper stuff I haven't even acknowledged?
Am I living authentically? Or am I, in subtle ways, just playing a role that the machinery of sublimation wrote for me?
Exactly. And the fact that those questions are so hard to answer, maybe that's the whole point. Maybe that difficulty is the significance of sublimation.
The beauty we find, the progress we make, they aren't neat answers. They're more like ongoing probing questions about who we are, what it means to be human.
Well put. And perhaps that lingering sense of unease, the one that can surface even when we experience something sublime, maybe that's the proof. A testament to the enduring truth of this incredibly intricate, powerful, and deeply human process.